the world is complicated. You want to be distracted. You want to have fun. You don't want to think about politics. You don't want to think about economy. You don't want to think about, natural disasters. So you take your friends, you take your family, you take your colleagues, and you have a fun day forgetting about all the concerns of a daily life. IAAPA is the Association for the Global Attractions Industry. So we represent all kind of attractions around the world and as well the suppliers to the industry. So when you think about attractions, you immediately think Disney World, you think Universal, but we also represent museums, we represent science center, we represent cultural attractions. It can be a ski resort, it can be a shopping mall, it can be retail, everything who considers themselves as an entity who would like to know more on how they can entertain their guests. Some you see here in the background. This is a palace in Abu Dhabi, the Palace of the President, which is a member of us. Ultimately, we regroup everybody who wants to attract guests and give them a good day out. And our job as an association is to connect peers with each other, to connect attractions with each other, that they can all learn from each other, to then promote their business, but at the same time also connect industry suppliers with attraction operators so that they can always see the latest trends, innovations, and products to actually enhance their offering in their parks.
We are a business-to-business platform where we provide connections, we provide information amongst our members, which are businesses. In that sense, we are kind of the back engine of the attractions industry. So we keep it well oiled. So with the information flowing between members, the latest, greatest information, trends.
We see different trends around the world. In the Asian and the North American market, we see a very strong presence of what we call family entertainment centers, often in the Asia Pacific room as part of shopping mall developments. In Europe, you see more cultural attraction, you see more zoos, all of that kind. This is where you see different trends around the world, but ultimately we represent all of them as long as they are fixed. We don't take traveling entities. We often refer to cruise ships as a floating amusement park. You have cruise ships with water slides, with miniature golf, with arcades, even with roller coasters. So ultimately it is an amusement park, traveling on the sea. So definitely, the big cruise ship corporations are organized through us as they are, as they are operators of real attractions. And we started as an association for amusement parks. We are pretty well represented, but there is so much more in this world which could have a home with us. One example is resorts. We see more and more resorts developing their own water parks, their own attractions. And we see them coming more to our events, to our expos.
The expo, especially here in Asia, is the one place where a lot of the great minds of the attractions industry get together.
It is constant between 5% and 7% of growth of membership over the past years. And what we have seen in particular is regional growth depending on where the market is heading. When you look at the past 10, 15 years, different regions in the world have seen different development. When you think back 10 years ago, we saw a huge rise in the United Arab Emirates. We saw a huge rise in the Chinese market. We saw a huge rise in Vietnam. Right now, we see a huge rise in Saudi Arabia, where there's a lot of investment going on. So this is usually where we also see then membership growth coming in.
We have the IAAPA Expos. Within these expos, there are education sessions where speakers will come and share best practice within the industry. You have access to a lot of the information that is available to you that no other association in the world can provide.
Something which makes us very special, I think, is that our industry is very open. That is something which is really outstanding, because if I call the 10 biggest operators and say, hey, let's get together to find a solution for this or that, they all come around the table and they all share openly and willingly with each other. And I don't think that would be the same case in the car industry or the cell phone industry. In a moment of crisis, we stick together. So when the pandemic hit, and it was February 2020, we got all big theme park operators around the world around the table and discussed together a paper on how to reopen safely during a pandemic. So, we as an association developed that guideline together with our members. We have a member who has opened their park more than 100 years ago. They had never been closed. It was a park in the UK. They had been opened during 2 world wars, and during the pandemic, they had to shut down. And this is where we assisted them coming out of what we saw afterwards is that once attractions were allowed to reopen, we saw what we call a champagne effect. People were sick of being at home. People were annoyed by, being locked in. They wanted to get out. They wanted to have fun. And this is where we saw a huge growth in the market, actually. We saw people wanted to get out, wanted to have fun, much what we do every day, what we still see today. The world is complicated. You want to be distracted. You want to have fun. You don't want to think about politics. You don't want to think about economy. You don't want to think about, the natural disasters. So you take your friends, you take your family, you take your colleagues, and you have a fun day forgetting about all the concerns of a daily life. And that happened after the pandemic. And that also happens right now, where we see people want to get distracted, so to say, from the difficult days we sometimes have in today's world.
There's been a really good rebound within the Asia Pacific attractions industry. And also, too, if you look at some of the governments that are in the region, like the Chinese government, the Japanese governments, they're really investing a lot of resources into the tourism industry. And, the attraction industry is part of that overall tourism group. So, the outlook for the attraction industry here in Asia is it's pretty bright. If you look at the top attended facilities in the world, you will see some of the Asian parks are amongst the most attended facilities in the world as well. There's Universal Studio Japan in Osaka. They're one of the most attended theme parks in the world. And you also look at in China, the Chamlong Group. They have a couple facilities in Guangzhou and Zhuhai. They are also one of the most attended theme park groups in the world. A lot of these attractions are moving from outdoors into indoor space, especially with a lot of shopping centers being empty because of the online commerce. So a lot of times, what happened is these developers, they either find investors to invest into these facilities, or they invest into it on their own, so they can attract more foot traffic into these different shopping centers. So the family entertainment centers are really booming here in Asia. They're booming in Singapore, booming in Thailand, as well as in China. There are new ones popping up left and right. There are different focuses. There are adult focus. There are a lot of for colleagues to do team building. There's also a lot of kids focused as well. For family to take the kids there. There's different kinds of IP driven facilities out there too. So I mean, what we're seeing right now is there's a lot of different types of facilities that are being put in place. The industry itself is really healthy here in Asia Pacific, and we will continue to see growth to the immediate future.
When you look at the past years, we have seen actually many giga projects in the market. We obviously had Universal Studios Beijing. We had, the expansion of Genting Highlands in Malaysia. We have seen Shanghai Disney. We see a huge expansion of Universal Studios Singapore. We see the new wildlife attractions in Singapore. We see new Legolands coming to China. And that all happens in over the past 5 years, 5 to 10 years, which is very impressive. What we expect as well is that we see a continued growth in India in the next 5 to 10 years. That is something also where we see a huge market in the years to come. When we look at the last big global economic crisis, 2009, with the bankruptcy of the Lehman Brothers, and that is where the regional parks actually benefit. At that moment, people traveled less, and instead of maybe going for a week on holidays, they went for 2 days to an amusement and theme park attraction. And that is a trend which has continued in our industry. When you look at modern large-scale projects, but also mid-sized parks in mature markets, Europe, North America, you see many of them building accommodation. So what used to be a day trip has now become a multi-day destination, because people immerse themselves into going to an attraction, going to a theme park, having that safe, fun, family, trustworthy day out. And they want to extend that with a unique accommodation. It's not only an Asian thing, actually, it's a global development in the Western world. If you look at Europe, if you look at North America, the birth rates are not where they should be. We have an aging population. So our industry actually responds to that in delivering experiences which ultimately can cater to three generations. And that is where I think families has become a more stronger focus over the past years to respond to that aging population as well. Yes.
The best thing about the attraction industry is no matter what group you are in, there's always a facility or there's always a segment of the facilities that are like that fits your needs or that makes you that can provide you with a great experience.
What we see is that many of our attractions have actually invested also into esports centers, like e-gaming centers, something which we wouldn't have seen probably 10 years ago. But it is where, the consumer changes, they change in their expectations, they change in what they would like to experience. And this is where we adapt because we want to give them a good time out. We always talk about, the competition in what people can experience at home. And so for us as an industry, it's always important to deliver something which you cannot experience at home. And I think that is what makes this industry strong. We live today in a globalized world where everybody can see every day, every minute of a day, what is happening in the rest of the world. So the guests, when they see on social media, look at that, tall roller coaster in Saudi Arabia. Why do I not have that? Why do I pay, for a theme park which doesn't deliver what I have seen online? And I think this is where expectations change. At the same time, what we see in investment into technology, the industry since the pandemic has invested a lot into digital systems. And while dynamic pricing was well known in the airline industry and the hotel industry, I think it was in the past 5 years that the attractions industry picked up on that. And that is something where you obviously need the technology in the back end to make sure that this is working out. And then ultimately, we use technology to have more fun. I think we all know when you walk around, young people, they're on their phones all the time. So the question is, how do I integrate the phone as part of the experience? And we have some wonderful members who have developed apps or technology where you can, walk around with the phone with a camera on. You point at a window of some scenery, and all of a sudden on your phone, through augmented reality, there's someone opening the window, and it's like some themed character, Mickey Mouse is coming out and says hi. And those are the things where we see technology actually adding to the experience. Universal Studios has developed the first augmented reality attractions, Super Mario Kart. So you have a headset on and you have glasses on and you see animation on those glasses while you see the scenery and while you see, your friend riding with you. And this is where technology is moving to.
I think labor shortage, it's one of the biggest challenge that facilities are facing right now. A lot of the younger generations are not really wanting to go into the attractions industry. A lot of the attractions are trying to find ways to see how having AI in place in the facility. How can that help with minimizing these challenges? So with challenges, there's also opportunities. There's opportunities to experience new technology and opportunities to reshape the entire guest experience. 20 years ago, when a guest want to plan a day at a theme park, they don't necessarily go on the website and see, what's there, but they don't purchase tickets online. They just go and they wait. They pay for parking. They pay for the entrance. Sometimes they could wait, an hour, 2 hours before they get into the park, right? But now, they spend that hour, 2 hours way ahead of time planning on, what they can do during the day. How can they spend their money? Where they can go. So the entire theme park experience has changed. And that's because of, in order to adapt to the labor shortage, adapt to higher costs. So I think, going forward, you'll see, especially here in Asia Pacific, with, in China, in Japan, the hotbeds of high, latest technologies. You see a lot of robots being used in theme parks. You see a lot of robots being used in attractions. You see a lot of, facilities incorporating AI into the calculations on the guest flow, on maintenance, and on even inventory of the food. with technology, it's really giving attractions an opportunity to reshape that guest experience, to kind of move the guest to more of an online experience. And then when they come to the park, they can really immerse themselves in the park experience. So technology will continue to play a bigger role in this going forward.
Something which is very important is when you look at the consumer today, when you look at the guest today, they are into experiences. They are more into experience than they are into belongings. People want to experience something which is shareable, which they can share with their friends, which they can impress their friends with, which they can memorize through pictures. A picture from your couch at home will never be the same as a picture from a cool experience somewhere in a theme park, an attraction, or when traveling.